Hi there, you've come through to Breakneck Running. This is my channel, my name's Terry. Please like and subscribe. I just want to discuss the South Downs Way 100. I completed the event last week. The event went really well. I finished in 21 hours and 55 minutes, which is actually a 100-mile PB for me. Training side for the event went really well, averaging about 40 miles a week. There were some weeks where I did more miles than that. I'll put some screenshots around the screen now just to show you where my training was at. I think there was a week where I did about 67 miles, maybe a couple of those weeks. So it was really good training. There was a weekend where I did double marathons, and that was at the Ashdown Forest. It really helped, really hilly course. I would recommend getting lots of walking into your training plan. The South Downs Way 100. It is a really hilly course. There are some parts of the course where it gets up to 500 foot of elevation within 1 mile. So it is really important that you get plenty of hill training in for the event, and that's where I sort of pushed my training. I did a lot of running on the North Downs Way as well. So the North Downs Way is quite hilly itself, so that really aided with my training and the ability to actually complete the event itself. So I really recommend that sort of training. Anyway, you can see my training plans around the screen now, hopefully, so have a look at that. The next thing to discuss is camping. It was really good. We camped at the actual event. We used a camper van. It's my mother's camper van that we used. I would highly recommend that you use a camper van or a tent. We were in bed by sort of 9 o'clock after having pizza from Winchester. Winchester's quite close, so it's really worth doing. We slept at Matley Bowl, and that's right at the bottom of the bowl that you have to run around a couple of times on the event before you leave for the South Downs Way. It's really nice there, really great atmosphere. It kind of gets your head into the right mindset for the event that's ahead, so I would really recommend that, highly recommend it, that you go and do that, camp there. We were in bed by 9, and I think the first cars started to come in at about 3:30 in the morning, so we were woken up at a good time really to get ourselves ready, get some breakfast in, get the protein shake in before the event started, so that side of it worked really well. So on to the actual event itself. We went to the race director part to collect our bibs and the tracking GPS unit that went onto the shoulder. Now those GPS units are really good. They're really useful for crew. Crew know exactly where you are on course. Also friends and family can have a look at it and they can see exactly where you are on course. So I think more events really need to have that, especially if it's a point-to-point event. It was really worth having that side of things. My crew always knew where I was. They would shout when I was going into crew location because they could see that I was the next runner coming in. So really useful, really helpful. Onto the event itself, a couple of laps of Matley Bowl, and then you're on to the South Downs Way. Now the South Downs Way is hilly, it's very up and down, and it's really hot. I would suggest when you're running it to make sure that you avoid the chalky parts and you run on as much grass as possible, especially in the heat. We were finding that the actual sun was bouncing back off of the white chalk and it was really heating us up. One person, Gareth Allen, put onto the Facebook page that actually his temperature sensor registered 40.7, and that's really hot, and I think that was probably a lot of it because of the bounce back from the white chalk. Now, I had a Sahara hat on, and that really helped me keep cool. Every time I passed the tap, I was making sure that I was soaking my hat so that it was just keeping me cool. Also, I was wearing a Salomon Ultra vest, Advanced 12 I think it is, 12 litre capacity, but I had a bladder on my back that I think held about 1.5 to 2 litres, somewhere around there, of water. A lot of other people didn't have as much water capacity as me, and I think they were struggling during the really hot hours, so I would highly recommend wearing a bladder for this event on the back. Also, it then frees up your pockets at the front for other items, so your food items, mobile phone charger and things like that. So I think using the backpack as the place where you keep all your water is really what worked for me. And also, a lot of the bladders these days, you just unzip them and fill them up so you can easily get more water on the way. I was living off of Lucozade, also Tailwind. Now, don't mix the two. It's disgusting if you mix the two, so don't mix the two. I made that mistake at one aid station. Also, I was using water as well. During the really hot sections of the run, I was using water. When I got to a crew location, my wife always handed me a can of Coke, full fat Coke, which really is a good energy provider for these sorts of events. I was also living off of peanuts and sweets. They're sort of my go-to when I'm running. So that was my main fueling strategy. So, kept running the event, got to about 48 miles, and there's a really big hill at 48 miles, and it really sapped the energy out of me, and it was really hot at that point. And my eyesight went a bit blurry, but just made sure that I kept hydrating at that point. And also then at 50 miles I met up with a couple of people at one of the cruise stops and just poured a load of water over myself, and that seemed to resolve the blurry eyes sort of side of things. I think it was just generated from the amount of heat that we were coming into. So that was around 48 miles, then kept going. I think at about 64, 65 miles, somewhere around there, my pacer came and started running with me, which was really helpful around that stage. I think a lot of the big hills are in the second half, so I'll put some of the hills around the screen now so that you can see. There was a couple of 400-foot hills and a couple of one that was 500-foot over the space of a mile, so the second half seems to, for me, seem to be a bit more hilly than the first half. During the night it got quite difficult. The heat came down, but at that point you found it more difficult to follow the trails. My head torch wasn't really lighting them up well enough to be able to see exactly where the trail went. So we were using my Fenix 5X quite a lot, and the map side of it to see where the trails went. So that was really helpful. I would definitely recommend having the course on your watch if that's a possibility to you, because there were a couple of points where I think we could have got lost if I didn't have the navigation on my watch. Also at night, as it got dark, we were running a lot less, and that wasn't because I had no energy left, that was more because it was more risky at that time of night to be able to carry on the running side of things. There were boulders and rocks and all sorts of debris on the track, on the trail, which could have easily led to an injury, so we really slowed down overnight. Once we got to Matley Bowl, once we got to the track even, I had plenty of energy left, so I ran around the track and then it was all finished. I didn't change any of my clothes, I didn't change my trainers, my socks, any clothes at all. The only thing that I did change was my hat during the nighttime hours. I put a black hat on, just because the other one had lots of sweat and things on it, and I just wanted it to freshen up a little bit. I didn't really use many of the aid stations. I didn't see that would help me at all. I think if you go into an aid station and you sit down for a few moments, your legs seize up, and that can then lead to you not carrying on with the race. So I think it's important not to spend too much time in the aid stations. You can grab your food and you can carry it with you as you're moving along, and it doesn't take too long to fill up bladders and things as you get into the aid stations. I did have my bladder full of water, back bladder full of water, and took the end off of the straw and filled up my hat on a couple of occasions with water, and that really helped. But there are plenty of taps en route to be able to actually douse your hat in water when you're running around. So that side of it was really good. The course is really well signposted. We didn't really get lost much at all. There was a couple of occasions during the night that things got a bit more tricky, but I think that was because mentally we were losing a bit of a mental side of things, and we weren't maybe seeing some of the signs that were there that we would have noticed earlier on in the day. So I think that was a personal thing. So the team at Centurion have done an amazing, put together an amazing event, and been able to make sure that all the signposts and everything are in the correct place so that people see them as they're going past. I didn't recce any of the course, so I didn't have any prior knowledge of any of the different parts of the course. The only things that I've done is watch a few YouTube videos. The trig to track was really useful. I'd definitely recommend watching that a few times and getting your pacer maybe to watch that, because there are a few little tricky bits when you get to the roundabout. I think if you took that first turning off, you'd probably get quite lost instead of sort of heading straight onto the petrol station. So it's really worth watching. I would do that if I was entering it as a newbie. So do that. Kit wise, I wore in Gingers, also Asics. I had some road shoes that I wore. The road shoes, the stones did eventually start to come through the bottom. You could feel them on your feet quite a lot, especially towards the end when the little tiny boulders and things started coming up, and standing on them did start to hurt. I wouldn't say that it was a trail shoe type course unless it was wet, to be honest with you, but it's not quite road either, so it's something somewhere in between, I would suggest, trainer wise. I have worn trails before though, and the soles on them are quite hard and they can lead to other injuries, so you can get a bit of knee problems if the ground's a bit too solid. So it's a balancing act as to what type of trainers you want to wear. Yeah, so the trainer side, just have a good think about that before you go to the event. Overall, it was a great event. My pacer, Andy Page, did brilliantly, and I had two crew as well, my wife Jo and his wife Claire. Both crewed me, and they did an absolutely amazing job. As I was coming into the crew stations, they were ready for me to take my bag off, fill up with water, and then me grab a Coke or a bit of food to chuck in. As I say, my time was reasonably good. I think I finished 75th in the end, which wasn't too bad. I mean, I could have probably knocked a bit of time off of it if the nighttime sections, I didn't feel like, if I felt a bit more secure about them, if I'd maybe gone and had a look at the end part of the course just to see where the dangerous parts were. But in my head I was well under the 24 hours. I knew I was going to get there in plenty of time, so I wasn't too worried about pushing it during the latter parts of the run. But overall, absolutely a brilliant event. Centurion running, amazing, and I hope to do future events. Thank you for watching. If you like what you've seen, then please like and subscribe.